Okay, folks, we are officially live from the Battleship. Uh, if you folks out there want to give me a comms check and just make sure that everybody can hear me, that'll give me some help. But we are just about ready to get underway. Right now, we've got a tugboat on the bow. It's a little hard to see if you notice that things are getting a little churned up down there. That is our tugboats. We do also have two tugboats alongside that we can see really well in that shot, who are waiting ever so patiently. Actually, three tugboats. There's one just off the left-handed screen there. I suspect y'all can't hear me, can you? Testing. Anyway. Yeah. Oh, perfect. You can hear me. Thank you, folks. So appreciative. Okay. So all told today, we have 4 tugs doing the work. They are all McAllister tugs. Just below where we are filming from the 08 level. 3 levels below us on the 05, we have our river pilot, not a harbor pilot, but a river pilot, and those in command of the tugs. In command of the tugs today, we got Captain Joe Benton. For those of you who tuned in with us for the previous cruises, this is our 3rd. Captain Joe Benton and McAllister ran that operation the last 2 as well. We are currently awaiting high tide, which is slated for 8 a.m. local. Right now it is 7:52 local, so we are right about where we're supposed to be. You'll notice on the right side of your screen there, just on the other side from that giant antenna, we've got lines still tied up, so we are still tied to the dock. We're going to keep those lines until we completely pass through so they can have some control of us. We do not have a tugboat in the dock itself, so therefore we want to make sure that we don't do too much wiggling while we're in the dock. And then once we have completely crossed the sill, our aft end is out, all tied up to the tugs. We're completely free of the dock. We expect the out operation will go pretty quickly once we get going. Again, we're looking at about an 8 a.m. start, which is in about 10 minutes or so. Today's goal, we are headed to Paulsboro, New Jersey. So that just happens to be right down there. You also happen to see in this shot those trees right here next to this parking lot. That is our slipway. That's where we were built. So if you haven't heard, this is a very local trip for us. This ship was built right here in the Philadelphia Navy shipyard. This is our 4th time in Drydock number 3 where we are now. And after 78 days in the dock, we are not quite headed home just yet, but we are close. So this morning, we believe that the ship weighs approximately 47,000 tons and change. While we normally sit in Camden at 45,000 tons, we've added 2,000 tons of ballast. So that is why we are headed to Paulsboro before we head home to Camden. We're going to take off that extra 2,000 tons. That 2,000 tons, the entire job of it is to weigh down our bow, so our trim is closer to level. We want the ship to sit evenly and come off the blocks evenly while in the dry dock. So we put on all that extra ballast water so that way she's a little bit more level. Now that we are leaving the dock, we'll be able to start dewatering as soon as we get to Paulsboro. I do expect Ryan will make an appearance on our live stream soon. Once we get underway, he's got a few other responsibilities this morning. So you'll get a little bit of me and a little bit of Ryan today. For those of you who haven't heard what our project is, so we've spent the last 78 days working on the hull of the ship. We didn't do too much work on the inside while we were here. Our priority was the things that we couldn't do back at our pier. So the whole ship got a nice fresh coat of paint. She got 3 coats on the main part of the hull and then an extra 2 coats, so 5 total coats on the wind water line. That's our boot topping. So it was a tan, a gray, a red for the main part of the hull, and then on top of the red, we also got a gold and then a black. We also had 160 through-hole openings. And those 160 through-hole openings all needed to be inspected. Our goal was to make sure that they all continued to be watertight. The ship was last dry docked in 1990. If you don't like the commentary, you can always turn it off, friends. That's okay, too. I am going to catch those of you who want to hear up. But because we haven't been dry docked since 1990, we want to make sure that the hull continues to be watertight and all those watertight openings are nice and secure. So that mostly consisted of air testing them, making sure that they... we have slightly crossed the sill, guys. That's nice. Making sure that all of them continue to stay watertight by welding any additional holes that we found. We found a few that had some minor leaks on them. Fortunately, the inside valves stayed watertight, so we didn't have any water intrusion. But now we have that sort of double redundancy. If there's anything that museum ships in particular love, it's that redundancy for keep the water on the outside. That's the whole point of this project. Other things that we worked on, we changed out the ship's cathodic protection. So she originally had 1,200 zinc anodes on the hull of the ship. We replaced them with about 600 aluminum anodes. These are twice the size, so we have half as many, but they're doing the same job. They're made out of a different material because the ship was originally decommissioned and mothballed in Bremerton, Washington, in a saltwater environment. We're in a freshwater environment here on the Delaware River. So thus, it's a different material just because of the different types of water that we're sitting in. So other projects that we did while we were here, we found that our riveted seams have a caulk in them. So we did some investigating. We found out that the Navy in 1990 put in a 2-part cold-bonded polysulfide sealant, which is... it's a caulk. It goes in the seams. Keeps the water out. The riveted seams just aren't quite as tight as they would want them to be. So gave us a little bit of extra cushion in those spaces. Yeah, Ryan is currently running around confirming that our tanks are still watertight. We have power. Our bilge alarms are still on, but just confirming that we don't have any water intrusion. It is something that we did when we first got put in the water. But throughout the entire cruise, we'll be doing those. We've got teams out. So Ryan will come and go. He is also in charge of our flags today. So we're going to be running up the ensign as soon as we formally get underway. We're still kind of just scooting around. I'd say Ryan does have a tankless job. That's my new favorite joke of the day. Thank you. Thank you. So right about now, it looks like turret 1 is just starting to cross the sill. So we are getting very close. It should be a very short trip. We are going like 2 miles downriver. It will most likely take 2.5 hours tops. And the real reason is it's going to take as long as it is just so we can take it nice and easy. Getting out of the dock is going to be our main priority, getting past this pier. And then after that, we've got a U-turn to make at the end so we can get up to that pier nice and easy. So it looks like we've cast off our first set of lines and are now on our second. We've got quite a few before we get to the end, so we're getting close. We are not firing any rounds on this particular cruise. We did on our last one. With the location of everything around us, it just, from a safety standpoint, we decided not to do any gun firing today. Maybe we'll do it on the next cruise. Haven't heard on final decision there. We are fortunate the weather is significantly better on this cruise than it was on the last one. When we arrived here in March, it was very cold. It is supposed to be quite hot today, though. We have officially arrived at summer here on the Delaware, but I'll take it over the freezing cold. We've got a lot less jackets on today. Which guns on board the ship can fire? Our 5-inch guns are all fully functional. However, we only fire traditionally the guns on one side of the ship, just because when we're at our pier, we're just a little bit too close to buildings. We've also got a pair of saluting guns that we can fire on both port and starboard, and then a 40-millimeter Beaufort. It's a World War II anti-aircraft gun that we can fire. So we're on the 08 bridge right now. So this is not the technically this is the primary con. It's not what most people think of as our primary steering location. If you've been on the ship, you've probably been on the 04, where you've got that large, thick conning tower. We are 4 levels above that. This is traditionally actually the spot that would have been used while they were navigating through sort of tight quarters like this one going downriver. So a very appropriate spot for us to be today. Our harbor pilot is on the 05. We've got an open bridge. Again, a very traditional spot for a harbor pilot to be. Again, our tugs today are McAllister. So that's where the folks from McAllister that are on board are today. Keeping an eye on all of our tugs. Again, we've got 4 tugs doing the work. And then I've heard legend that one of our former captains, Captain Katz, who's now Admiral Katz, might be on the navigation bridge today. He's here enjoying the show. He's not technically our captain at the moment, though we do have his admiral's flag raised. For those of you watching across the river, if you're listening in, I will give you some amount of warning, because I'm actually the official call to tell folks that it is time to raise up the ensign. So stay tuned on that. We're going to wait until the last line is pulled. So we are getting close, but we're not quite there yet. Wait till our stern crosses. So our tugboats we've got one really pulling us out of the dock right now. We've got a couple others on standby waiting to pull up alongside us once there's enough ship outboard of us to do it, or outboard of the dock. So in a waiting pattern on that one. We are pulling off one more line now on either side, and we've got just a little bit left to go. Right now, turret 2 is crossing the sill. The flags that we're flying at the moment, the ones that go from the bow to the stern, they're called friendship flags. They're purely decorative. They just look really nice and pretty. They are not in any particular order. They do not spell anything. There is a specific order that they are supposed to be in, but it doesn't spell anything out. It's just sort of a nonsense selection of flags. We do have our flags on bow and stern right now. And right now, because we are still technically tied up, we still have our jack at the bow and our ensign at the stern, but we will shift colors once we're officially underway, once the stern has crossed the dock. So we're close. We will be doing some sounding of the horn. However, the horn is fabulously loud, and there are a whole lot of other people around us, so we're not going to sound the horn just yet. Yeah, firing the guns would definitely break the windows in Philly. We don't want to do that. The bilge pumps on the ship do not work anymore. We have changed them out for a modern bilge pump system. Fortunately, our bilges have stayed very dry, so it's not something that we've ever needed while we sit in Camden, and we've got an extra special eye kept on it while we are here, especially today while we're underway. But the reality is we have very unlikely need for them while we're doing this. Keeping an eye on it, though. As we said, Brian's got that tankless job down in our tanks today, making sure everything stays nice and secure. Fortunately, because we still have our bilge alarms on, that'll be our first indication that something has gone wrong. So we're keeping an ear out for that. It's very loud. It can't be missed. But low expectations for any of that sort of excitement today. Right now, where we are is just about to cross the sill. So we now, at least from our camera angle, get to say goodbye to the Philadelphia Navy Yard, or at least dry dock number 3. For those of you who haven't heard, this is our 4th time in Drydock number 3. We were built at the Philadelphia Navy Yard, just off of our starboard side, at the slipway here, back when it was still the Navy in that particular part of the property. She was launched December 7th, 1942, and just happened to run into those trees over there. So she was fairly immediately brought here into Drydock number 3 to be completed. That mostly included putting her screws, her propellers, her rudders on. And then elsewhere here in the Navy Yard, things like her gun turrets, the rest of the superstructure were all added in. She was brought back here a second time in 1943 to clean out the mud that we picked up when we accidentally hit the state of New Jersey on our launch. And then brought back here again in 1967 as the ship got ready to go to Vietnam. So this is our 4th time here. As I've said, we've been here for 78 days. It's been a lot of work. The Philadelphia Ship Repair, part of North Atlantic Ship Repair, has been doing the work, and they have been fantastic. It has been a real pleasure working with them. And they're a merry band of folks, including CCSI, that's the Corrosion Control Specialists Incorporated, I think is the way that acronym goes. The folks from CCSI, they did all the paint and the pressure washing. So it was great to have them here. We did sell tickets for the ride along, and we did sell out. So we have some folks riding the ship as passengers today, just a handful of folks. But always nice to get the chance
not out of the dock yet.
To have some guests on board. As a reminder, today's cruise will probably be approximately 2 hours, so a fairly short one. We're just going slightly downriver. For those of you asking if we can stop for ice cream, a little bit behind the scenes for you. So a lot of this process of refloating the ship, and when we had to fleet the ship to paint underneath the blocks and all that, there's been a lot of standing around and waiting and watching water move up and down. So our fan favorite thing to do is to go get ice cream. Fortunately, there was always some in the freezer here. So we have been eating so much ice cream. So much ice cream. Anything's better than a 3-hour cruise, that's right. But next week, our cruise next Thursday is probably closer to a 3-hour cruise, but we're not going to invite Gilligan this time. So we will be moving again next Thursday from Paulsboro to Camden. That is our final trip. We will be returning home. So as a reminder, we're stopping in Paulsboro to deballast. We need to take off 2,000 tons, 500,000 gallons of water out of the bow of the ship. So that allowed us to have a close to even trim. So the ship sat down and came off the blocks level. But we do not need it while we are regularly floating in Camden, so it will be coming back off, which is why we're stopping in Paulsboro. In theory, we could do that back home in Camden, but with the amount of water depth that we have at home, and we are sitting deeper in the water right now, and the difficulty of getting cranes and equipment in, it's just a lot easier for us to do it in Paulsboro. So we're making a side trip there first. We will live stream our second cruise, just like we did our first 2 cruises on our way down here approximately 2.5 months ago. So no, we did not sign the bottom of the ship anywhere. However, the staff of the museum did carve their names into one of our anodes. So we added 600 aluminum anodes to the ship as part of our cathodic protection. That's just there to help us in case there is sort of dissimilar metal corrosion. We're going to let something else corrode instead of the ship. So we've got these aluminum anodes on board. So we carved our names into one of those. So that is sitting on the starboard stern near one of the bilge keels. So we sort of put our names on the ship, but it's not actually on the ship. Those anodes are designed to be removed as they degrade. And that will certainly degrade. Our names will get wiped off of that before long. They're not dug too deep. Those are deliberately sacrificial. They're not supposed to be there for too long. So not such a huge concern for us. If you look really, really, really closely on your camera, all the way at the bow near the flag there, we have a staff member waiting to shift colors in just a moment. We haven't quite finished crossing the sill yet. We're at approximately the forward smokestack crossing the sill at this time, so we've got a little bit of a ways to go. We do have tugboats that are now pairing up alongside us, so we are in a slight holding pattern while the tugboats get secured to our hips. She does have some pretty sizable hips. If you hadn't heard, our total beam is 108 feet and 6 inches. Because the Panama Canal is 110 feet, they made us as big as we could and still managed to fit, which means that we also just barely fit into this dock. It's a tight squeeze, but we do. So we're using aluminum anodes because we're sitting in freshwater, turning brackish, as opposed to zinc, which we use for saltwater. We're not in saltwater anymore, so no need for that. No, we don't have Drakenfell with us this time. Would have been cool. He is on other quests. Let's see. Yeah, we still don't know what happened to that, to the propeller that has the nick in it. Our number one screw, so that's the one furthest outboard on the port side, has a chunk missing out of it. So we have reviewed the 1990 footage of Drydock, the last time the ship was out of the water, and there wasn't a nick there then. So we know that this is something that's happened since the ship was decommissioned. We know that the ship spent 10 years sitting in Bremerton, Washington, in mothballs. We know that the ship then spent a long time on a cruise from Bremerton, Washington by tug here to the Philadelphia Navy Yard, and then spent 20 years as a museum. Somewhere along the way, something hit it, but we don't know what it was. The Coast Guard is around. They are keeping a watchful eye on us. They have come and inspected us. It's prior to getting underway, they come and confirm that we have everything all secured, that this is a safe voyage, especially because we do have people on board. But the Coast Guard will have a fairly minimal presence today. The tugboats are run by McAllister, and our tug captain today is Joe Benton. We do not have a reopening date for the museum yet. We are optimistic. We will be back in Camden next Thursday, and we will be reopened sometime before 4th of July, but the rest of the details are still being worked out. Once we return to Camden, we got to put the gangways back, and power back, and plumbing back, and internet back, and the alarms back, and all the various things that we got to do. Plus, we took some of the artifacts off the ship. They've got to get put back on and put back on display. So we got to put the whole ship back together. So it'll be a week or so till we get things back up and running. When we have a date, we'll let everybody know. We cannot dredge in Camden this time of year. The water, there's restrictions on the waterway here. The fish are spawning, so we cannot dredge. So we have plans to dredge in the future, but couldn't be done while we were here. The mast will go back on soon. We haven't fully decided whether or not we will wait until after we have dredged, because we will dredge in the fall and then put the mast on, whether we'll put the mast on and then dredging will happen at some future date. Still to be determined. Don't you worry. We will tell you all about it on our YouTube channel. For those of you who don't normally tune in, we normally have an episode out 5 nights a week, Monday to Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So if you haven't been watching our channel regularly, where have you been? We have 1,500 episodes. We have been sharing all about this project for a long time. Yes, we do have drones out and about right now. We are filming this from every angle possible, and we did send drones down into the dock. Getting a drone permit here is not easy, so we did not do it too often, but we were able to do it some. Ryan and I probably will not be relaxing until the ship is reopened in Camden. So we still have one final push to go. But we're close, last couple of weeks. So right now, Ryan is, of course, doing his favorite tankless job. He is doing tank inspections. So just confirming as we start to get water running over some of the hull for the first time, making sure that there is no water intrusion inside the ship. We do have alarms that will go off, but it's still nice to have eyes on everything just in case an alarm had been disconnected or something and we didn't know about it. So our high concern spots include the propeller shafts. They got a whole lot of work while we were here, so we're pretty confident in them now, more confident in them on this cruise than we were on the way down. But this is our first time moving with the new work that had been done on the propellers, so we're going to keep a very watchful eye on them and just confirm that they are watertight. We're also keeping an eye on the engine rooms. They have some of the highest proportion of through-hole openings that the Navy had cut holes in the ship to bring water into, say, the boilers. So we're keeping a watchful eye on those. We checked all of those through-hole openings while we were here. That was a major part of this project. But nonetheless, we're confirming that now that it's actually wet again. And then we also have some folks investigating where we had put our ballast water. If the ballast water suddenly gets lower or higher, something dramatic has happened there. So we're keeping a watchful eye on those tanks as well. Fortunately, keeping an eye on the ballast tanks right now is the easiest part because you can mostly just shine a flashlight and say, yep, there's water there, which makes it a little bit easier. We have power supplied by a generator right now. So normally the ship uses shore power. We just plug in like you plug a building in, basically. While we're underway, because we cannot make our own power, we are moving by tugboat. We have a generator on board that's doing the work. Now, while we're still getting away from the pier, we also happen to have something cool alongside us. Oh, of course, it's right in the middle of that pole. That is our caisson. So the thing that has been keeping us away from the Delaware River for the last 78 days. That's the little wall at the end of the Drydock. So they towed that away about an hour ago now. So it will go back to its place at the end of the Drydock as soon as we pull out of here. So we're getting close. Right about now, we are moving right along. So we are still somewhere between the stacks is our spot for what's lined up with the sill. So our stern is still sticking out or still sticking into the caisson or into the Drydock. So we're not quite ready to shift colors yet. Can confirm, I can see Ryan is on the missile deck now. So tank checks have been done and they're now waiting patiently for our stern to cross the sill, the last line to get cast off. And then we can shift colors. So he's going to raise up the big American flag, the ensign. It's ginormous. It's like 60 feet long. It is huge. So it will be, that'll go up as soon as we're officially underway. We still have lines tying us to the pier. For those of you who didn't get to see her underside, definitely check out our other videos. Check out Battleship New Jersey on Facebook. We've got lots of photos. It was this beautiful bright red color. Now, when we came into the dock, our hull was actually black and not red. So we have a slight change of color from where we were when we came in. We have returned the ship to the color that she was for the majority of the time that the ship was in service. It was generally red. Red comes from the fact that there was an additive in the paint, anti-fouling, that makes paint red. And then once it stopped making paint red, the chemical mixtures changed. Well, we paint the bottom of ships red, so it's always been red. When the ship was decommissioned, they didn't use anti-fouling paint, so they just put regular black paint on. We did not use anti-fouling paint this time, but Sherwin-Williams is our paint provider. They have been amazing throughout this entire project. We've had one of their representatives on staff with us the whole time. And they said, well, we can get you red paint for the same price as black paint, so we have red paint now. We will not be playing Reveille as we raise the ensign. That is not what is traditionally done. But we will what we'd like to do is sort of raise or play our breakaway song, which is typically what's done as you're sort of breaking away from like underway replenishment, which is AC/DC. I don't think we're going to be doing that today. We are keeping all of our comms open so that way we can do any emergency communications we need instead of some more of the fun things. So we're keeping the music to a minimum as we make sure that we're keeping everything safe. We will blow the horn when it is appropriate to blow the horn. We are still in a spot where everyone needs to be able to hear, so we can't do anything super loud like blow our horn. Our horn is fabulously loud. We will not be doing any diver inspections once we return to Camden. We will do everything internally. We will do a complete tank inspection. So we will do every single one of our 500 tanks and voids, ballast, fuel, all of it's going to get inspected. So for starters, it's going to be tank soundings, just confirming there's no water in there. And then anything that is suspicious or we just can't confirm, we'll get a visual inspection once we return to Camden. Some of that will start while we're in Paulsboro, but we'll do a final check of it when we get to Camden. So we're doing some while we're moving along, but most of it, we will do it all again once we finally stop moving. So right now we are still getting all of our tugs tied up and secured to us. And then once that's been taken care of, we will fully get underway. So we're still sort of waiting on the pier. Yes, there's a few news organizations broadcasting too, so you can tune in with them as well. I have seen ABC, I have seen CBS, I have seen PHL 17. I see a couple of helicopters flying near us, so they might get a good visual from the sky as well. But lots of drones. So we are halfway out of the sill. So right now, about the center of the ship is at the sill. So we're not fully out yet. We're still getting there. I expect we need about another 20 minutes, but we'll see. The passengers on board are not really moving around too much. We're keeping them constrained to the O1 level, which is where the captains and the admirals were. Keeping them there keeps them safely out of the way of those handling lines out on deck, as well as making sure that we know where everybody is and nobody falls overboard, anything like that. So it keeps them nice and safe. So really, there hasn't been much repair work on the inside of those through-hole openings. It was welded from the outside, so there's not much to see there. We really didn't do much work on the inside of the ship. The only work inside the ship that we really did, other than ballasting, which was putting water onto the ship, is we cleaned our CHT tanks. So that's our sewage tanks. That was not something that we decided to film. It was pretty gross. We took enough documentary evidence, so we have that for our records, but we are going to spare you all what the inside of our sewage tanks look like. That's the only real work that we did inside. We are not quite underway yet. We have not cast off final lines. So your big indicator of it that we are technically underway, that we are no longer tied to the pier, is the little blue flag at the very bow of the ship. That's our naval jack. So when the naval jack comes down, it means we're officially underway. At that point, we will also take down the ensign on the stern and raise the really big flag, our holiday flag, amidships, right between the stacks, right off the mast. So Ryan will be here at some point during today's live stream. He is running up the big holiday flag and doing tank inspections, so he'll come and go as we see fit. Yes, we still do overnights, and the overnights will be back once we return to Camden. I think we're booking them starting in August. We're giving ourselves some cushion to reopen. Yes, we are doing this entire project by tugboat. She is not moving under her own power at all today. We do not do that. We are not allowed to do that. That's a Navy rule. The Navy gave us that rule in 2001 when they gave us the ship. So we've still got some time. We are moving, but we still have, it looks like, our last couple lines about to come off the ship. Currently, it's right around turret 3 is crossing the sill, so we're getting closer. Our last tugs waiting for us to tie up to us, and then we can really get underway. So close. Getting out of the dry dock is a very careful, very dangerous maneuver. We fit in this dry dock exceptionally close. We have very little room on either side. They couldn't even get a man lift onto either side to paint the sides. They had to raise or drop down a platform from a crane. So it is tight. So they're doing this very slowly, very carefully, making sure we don't ruin that paint job. We are not actually going to fly the wetsuit flag today as we did on our previous cruise because the wetsuit flag belongs to Captain Tucker. And today we have Captain Katz on board. He doesn't have his own flag. We are flying his Admiral's flag today instead. But we might fly the wetsuit flag next time. For those of you unfamiliar, our last captain had a flag made for the ship that says wetsuit on it. We eat this stuff up. It's a big, giant yellow flag. It was really fun to fly it last time. We know it hasn't been flown since the ship was decommissioned, but not flying it today. Also, as an artifact, we try not to fly it too much. And if you can't tell from the friendship flags that are flying right in front of us, the really colorful ones, the wind is blowing pretty hard today. So we're keeping the wetsuit flag safe inside for today. So, yes, you are correct. The Philadelphia Ship Repair has sold the dock to the neighbors that are Rhodes, and there is some potential that this will be the last ship in this dry dock, at least for a good while. They do not plan on using this dry dock, it seems. So while this is our 4th time in this dry dock, we are sad to be leaving. It is quite possibly our last time in this dry dock, but still to be determined based on future things. So for those of you asking about the black water work, that's us cleaning our sewage tanks. That's all that is. We do still have functioning heads. It's our bathrooms on board. So we do have sewage that sits in tanks. It gets pumped off regularly, but it doesn't get properly cleaned when you just pump it off the ship. So therefore, it got a good proper cleaning while we're here. In theory, that is something that we could do back in Camden. But to be honest, it's a really hard job, and it was easier and better for us to have the yard do it. So for those of you who might not have heard, we are headed to Paulsboro, which is just a couple of miles downriver from us. So it should be a pretty short cruise. We are expecting to arrive at 10:30, give or take.
Stand by. We're down to the last line.
Okay, that's the update from Ryan. We're down to our last line. We are getting very close to officially casting off. We are keeping essentially a deck log as we go to make sure that we are tracking times so we can tell you exactly 10 years from now what time we crossed the sill today and officially cast off lines and got underway. Yes, we have lots of tugs. We've got 4 tugboats doing the work today. So we have not seen Jupiter today, but I have heard rumor that Jupiter will be joining us for our next cruise. So Jupiter is one of the tugs that helped get us into Drydock number 3 when we were launched December 7th, 1942. So she was out here on the Delaware with us. The tree line you see on the top of the screen is the part of New Jersey that we ran into that day. So Jupiter will hopefully be joining us for our next cruise. She's got her engines going. Last I heard, she's ready for it. Because she is as old as she is, she will be joining us, not doing any of the actual tugging. So right now, we are just about to cast off that last line. So we're going to say goodbye to Drydock number 3. You might notice over there, we've got the aircraft carrier Kennedy. We're going to say goodbye to her in just a moment. Yes, we have 4 McAllister tugs today. And again, our tug captain is Joe Benton. So our anchors are moved from a electro-hydraulic system, and the capstans and windlasses that operate our anchors do still work. We will not be using them. When we return to Camden, while we have anchor chain in the water, our anchors themselves continue to hang off the bow. Our anchor chain connects to a giant block of concrete in the riverbed. So not deploying anchors, but we will drop the anchor chain, but we don't need the windlasses for that. It's a slightly different setup. Jupiter is a museum, sort of. They're semi-operational, so depending on your definition of a museum, but people can visit them. They sit in Penn's Landing right over by Olympia. If you haven't been over to see them, definitely go check them out. They have a very active Facebook page. They'll give you all the details. They're always looking for volunteers as well. So Kennedy is not active or a museum ship. She is decommissioned. And she is set to go to the scrapyard, honestly, as soon as they can. So she is going to head out as soon as she's available to do so. So she's getting close. She's going to go to Texas to be scrapped. So that is the older Kennedy. So that's CV-67. She's the new Kennedy is still being built. If you haven't been to Olympia, go check her out. She's gorgeous. She's here in Philadelphia. She sits next to lovely Bakuna. That's a submarine. Olympia is a cruiser. They're both gorgeous. They both would love to see your additional visitation. So when you come to Camden to see us, make sure you pop across the river to go see them. So it looks like we are close. We haven't quite finished crossing the sill yet. We are waiting for final call from Ryan on that. We are close. Your obvious indicator to you will be the blue flag on the bow going down. Looks like last lines are just about to go. I can see our dock master from here standing right at the end watching the last little bit of our stern cross the sill. So we are close. Looks like our last tug is tying up. So we are, looks like we're stationary for just a moment. But we will be officially underway soon, very soon. So the ship itself, as far as her working conditionness, the gun turrets, the 16-inch gun turrets do not fire. They do not turn. They can be manually elevated, but they don't have the electrics in them to still fully elevate electrically. The 5-inch guns can be fired, but otherwise don't have any electrical. They don't rotate on their own or elevate on their own. Otherwise, most everything in the ship does work except for the engineering plant that's been shut down. We're not allowed to do any work on that. That's a Navy rule. So, but the random hoists inside the ship do work. We've got functioning radios. Most of the galley equipment works, though we can't use it to actually cook in. The phones work. The HVAC works. The plumbing works. Most of it works. So painting the freeboard is on our to-do list. So that's the gray part, the above water part of the hull. That will start fairly quickly once we return home, most likely. We're keeping a watchful eye on between that and our dredging plan. But painting the freeboard should take a couple months. Because we're doing it from a barge, it goes a little bit slower than the work that we were able to do here. All told, 6,500 people did join us while we were here in the Drydock for tours, which was amazing. We're so glad to see that many people join us. It is less than would have joined us in Camden, but they really got a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see it. So we're glad that we had everybody here. We do not have a reopening date for returning. We have a return to Camden date next Thursday, but once we return to Camden, we don't have a reopening date for the museum. It will be quickly. It'll be before 4th of July, but we don't have a final date yet. So as a recap, while we were here, our main project, painting the hull of the ship, inspecting our through-hull openings, checking our cathodic protection, and a couple of extra projects that we picked up along the way. There was some repair work done on the bow, some doubler plates, and some two-part cold-bonded polysulfide sealant that we added to the riveted seams. So those were our main things. We did a couple of small things like cleaning our CHT tanks that I mentioned before. We boxed in our propeller shafts. And really, we're just inspecting all those through-hull openings one way or another, making sure that they stay watertight for years to come. So we last were dry docked in 1990. It's been 30 years. We don't expect to do this again for another 30 years. So we really had to batten everything down because we won't have the opportunity to do this again anytime soon. An active ship has the luxury of saying, well, we're going to dry dock again in 3 years, so we don't have to worry about that just yet. It's not quite broken. We have to think, is that going to break in the next few years? So we got to change the tires now, if you will. What kind of sealant was that? A two-part cold-bonded polysulfide sealant, something called Theocol. It's a caulk. It is breezy today. I am away from our tug cruise, so I don't actually have a wind speed for you, but I can tell you it is breezy. So we're keeping a watchful eye on that as well today. If it gets too windy, we do have to worry that the wind will blow the ship. So the tugboats are keeping a very watchful eye on that breeze. However, it's still not nearly as breezy as it was on our first cruise back in March. So not a threat today, but we are keeping a watchful eye on it. So our tug cruise and our river pilot are down on the 05. So they are just a couple levels below us. You see the sort of round structure there? That is our conning tower. You can see a couple of bodies down there, a couple of people. That is our official piloting crew. So we're still waiting to cross the sill. We are not quite underway yet. We are just waiting. Feel free to send your questions in. We love questions. And of course, our most asked question is, where is Ryan? Ryan will be here as soon as we officially get underway. He's going to shift colors, and then he'll probably join us. Most of our crew, they do live in Philadelphia. So the commute was about the same for most of us. We're only 6 miles from Camden here, so not a big difference. So we're really glad that Iowa was able to rotate their gun turret. They didn't have their gun turret demilitarized quite as thoroughly as ours did. They removed pretty much all the electrical wiring.
Bring down the jack.
Okay, we're officially underway. So we are shifting colors now. We are pulling down the jack at the bow. You can watch it go down now. We're pulling down the ensign on the stern, and then the large American flag, our holiday flag, is going up amidships as we speak. It is ginormous. It's about 60 feet. Last time we took both of the flags from the 2 cruises and we sold them on eBay. So if you too would like a giant 60-foot American flag, you can have one, most likely. Check our eBay when we're all done. But we are shifting colors because we officially departed the pier. We are no longer tied to the dock at all, so that makes us officially underway. After 78 days at Drydock number 3, we have officially departed.
Right now.
So the ensign is officially up. We have shifted colors, and away we go. So the holiday and holiday flag, today happens to be Flag Day. It is actually a holiday. The holiday and holiday flag is just really a celebration flag. Celebrating getting underway, so we're putting up a really big flag. We don't get underway very often, so we got to do it when we can. So we unfortunately cannot play any music over our speakers or anything, just because, honestly, 1, YouTube doesn't like it. But number 2, we want to make sure that communications are free and clear and able to do what we need to do while we're here. So we are keeping things pretty mellow, just to make sure that we don't... people can communicate when they need to. So there'll be some amount of horn blowing when appropriate, but we're not going to be doing it just yet. So today we use compressed air on our horn. Historically, it was steam. We don't have any steam built up on the ship, so we just use compressed air and it works just fine. The tugboat is going to do all the work, and we have 4 tugboats. They are going to be pushing us around and pulling us and doing what they need to do. Our rudders and propellers are doing absolutely none of the work today. So we replaced our cathodic protection while we were here. We switched it over to a freshwater cathodic protection system. So we will be maintaining it while we're there and keeping an eye on it. We can replace the individual anodes if we need to as they wear out over the years. We have an impressed current cathodic protection system that we're keeping a watchful eye on. Seems to still be in good condition, but we're going to double check that when we get back. We like to say that it's a belt and suspenders project. We're making sure we've got all of our options. So unfortunately, where we are here on the 08, turning the camera around shows you a big gray wall. So we don't have too much flexibility for pivoting around up here. We do expect to be underway for about 2 miles down road. And honestly, the reason it's as long as it is, we got a U-turn at the end and we're just taking it nice and easy. Last time we averaged at 4 knots. Our rudders are currently locked in place, as well as our propellers, our screws. So because of that, they're not going to be doing any moving. That is one of the things that the Coast Guard inspected while they were here this week, just confirming that everything is locked in place and isn't going to cause any issues while underway. And yes, we are really glad there's no goose butt today. For those of you who haven't been around on the channel all that long, some of our time lapses of this project have resulted in just geese sitting directly in front of the camera. Thanks, geese. We got lucky today. Just off of our port bow here, we can start to see some of those that are sailing alongside us. So there might be just a post in the way. But we've got joining us the local PD. They're keeping boats at a safe distance from us today, so that way no one gets too close. We're going to let Ryan continue to host the main parts of this channel when he's available. He's much more fun. But I'm happy to be with you guys today while Ryan runs around. Excellent. Glad to see that we're on 6 ABC. I think we're on a couple of news channels today. So that means that at least for today, we get to be the world's fastest battleship. To be honest, we hold the record for the world's fastest battleship of all time anyway, so we don't need to worry too much about the speed record today. This ship, when she left this dock in 1968, proceeded to get up to 35.2 knots. So we hold that record already. But we're going to enjoy getting up to probably about 4 knots today. We do not have to reballast. We are currently ballasted. We needed to ballast to get out of the dock, and then we will deballast. That's why we're going to Paulsboro. So we're going about 6 miles, we're about 6 miles from Camden now. We're going about another mile or 2 downriver. So that way we can take that water back off the ship. All told, it's 500,000 gallons that we're taking off the ship. So that way we can not have 500,000 gallons of water inside the ship. Rule number 1 of all ships, keep the water on the outside. But with a museum ship especially, we don't even like having the ballast water inside. So we're going to take it back out. Also means that the rainwater runs off fast. So once we have finished deballasting, the ship will return to Camden next Thursday. So we will have a second live stream then to make sure that we can show you guys all of that big excitement. There is a party in Camden, so for those of you who live nearby, stop in, see us, join us for the party. I hear there will be food trucks, I hear there will be games, and there, of course, will be a battleship underway. So lots of excitement to see there. You can't quite see it on camera just because of the way that things are situated here, but we still have a pier next to us. When we first came in, that's where Gilliland was parked. Today our caisson is over there, and our caisson's still sitting there with a couple of crew on board waiting to finish the evolution, because they're going to bring the caisson back to the dock as soon as we leave. The plan is to drain the dock back out today. So 35 knots is fabulously fast. There's a reason why she holds the record for the world's fastest battleship. We are not going to go that fast today. We'll probably go 4 knots, we did on our last cruise. So it'll be much slower, but we also are going pretty short distance. There's not a lot of time to build up speed. And to be honest, we want to take it nice and safely, so going pretty slowly is in our best interest. Looks like we are still getting the last little bits of our tugs all secured, and then we will really get moving out of the dock. Trust me, once we really get moving, you'll know, we're going to take, so first and foremost, they're going to drain all the water out, and then they're going to take the blocks we were sitting on out. This North Atlantic Ship Repair, who runs the Drydock, also runs Boston Ship Repair. So they're going to take some of the blocks up to Boston. The rest of them will just come out of the dock. And then making sure everything is nice and secured, because they're actually going to be passing along this Drydock to another company. The inside of the ballast tanks do get a coat of paint fairly regularly. So the ones that we have ballasted in for this project, once they are drained and cleaned, they will get a fresh coat of paint. So they will be nice and shiny and new. That will take place over the course of the summer. So we've got a long way to go before that project's done. For those of you who are interested in finding out more about our ballasting or about cleaning those ballast tanks, don't you worry. We're going to post all about it on our YouTube channel right here every night, Monday to Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. If you're unfamiliar with us, we have something like 1,500 episodes, including about 80 just on Drydock alone. Once we get back to Camden, we will continue to post updates on our maintenance, but also we'll go back to some of our regularly scheduled content on the history of the ship and various other things. The insides of those tanks, I will warn you, they look like empty rooms with flaking paint. So they're not the most exciting places to see. You can see some of them in some of our videos. We're getting close. We're very close. We want to get past this pier before we really get going. And this pier is a little difficult to see, but it's still just getting past us. So we say goodbye to our various yard workers. Special shout out to everybody at Philadelphia Ship Repair and our various contractors who came out and have helped with this project. Philadelphia Ship Repair has been absolutely wonderful. Hi, Phil's wife that's probably watching. That's our dock master. You guys have been wonderful. And our contractors like CCSI, that's Corrosion Control Specialists Incorporated. They did the pressure washing of the hull, and then they gave her a fresh coat of paint. She looks absolutely gorgeous. If you haven't had the chance to see what the underwater hull looks like, check Battleship New Jersey's Facebook page or our previous YouTube videos. You can find out what it looks like. It is stunning in her new coat of red paint. We also had folks who came in and helped with putting on fiberglass on the propeller shafts, and folks who came in and helped with the welding, as well as Philadelphia Ship Repair's own welders and our lovely riggers and everybody else. So our ship is so low at the bow right now because we have all that ballast in. Honestly, while it is about an 8-foot difference, a recap of those when we get back. Just a one camera setup for the live stream, unfortunately. That looks like some of you will have the option of watching on the news, so check that out as well. I can't tell you how many man hours went into the dry dock. A whole lot. On any given day, there were 30 to 40 people in the dock. Some days significantly more. Some days a few, just depending on what was being worked on at that time. While we were painting, there was a whole lot of people here. Once painting stopped, we pretty much got down to the welders at one point, so it just sort of depends on any given day. So hard to tell you exactly how many man hours went into it. Trooper is not on board today. For those of you who don't know Trooper, he is Ryan, our usual host, three-legged Bill. He's a tripod. He's adorable. He's visited us here in the dry dock once or twice, but he is not on board today. He is safely at home enjoying a nap. So our wind water line today is painted to match what our wind water line is. So that's called our boot topping, that black stripe there. And it matches what the museum looks like. So it looks weird today because our water line isn't in its usual location. Once we deballast, it'll go back to normal. It'll be halfway through the boot topping. It'll look gorgeous. Right now, you can't see the boot topping at all on the bow. It's mostly missing because of that ballasting. Okay. Our tug captain looks like he's confirming that we are fully away from the pier, and we are officially starting to turn. So while we've been underway for a little while now, we are fully underway now as we get away from the pier. So it is breezy. Sorry, guys, we got a little bit of shaky cam action here as we deal with that breeze, but we are officially starting to move. And headed downriver towards Paulsboro. We're going to be in Paulsboro until next Thursday. From there, that next Thursday is our return trip to Camden. We don't have all the details just yet, but we're getting that all worked out. We would love to be able to fire the guns as we pass different groups today, but for safety reasons, we have elected not to be doing any gun firing today. Yeah, Iowa decided to add shells to do her ballasting effort so they can keep it on permanently. That wasn't enough for what we needed. We needed a much more dramatic bow shift, so thus couldn't work for us, but we know that's a cool project for them. It's something more permanent for them. The general quarters alarm definitely works, but we will not be pulling it today. We do not need to scare everybody on board. You can see right there on our bow, our tugboat's doing all the work, getting us nice and turned and ready to head downriver. We'll be underway like this for about another 2 hours or so, give or take. That especially in these delicate moments that communications are free and open and the horn is just fabulously loud. So no horn. And yes, we are fabulously close to the airport. One of our favorite things that we will not miss about Drydock number 3 is being so close to the airport. Every minute and a half, a plane flies over. Yeah, I expect that our stream will probably be occasionally a little bit spotty. We're out in the middle of the Delaware River. We are fortunate that we have some internet at all. So let's see. I suspect that's also why our camera looks slightly unfocused, just because the quality of our internet's not that great. So we fortunately are taking footage from many other cameras. So we will still have the ability to post that sort of high definition version of the stream coming soon. Our bow is not pointed down. In fact, it's still pointed significantly up. If you see it from the side, you'll see that it is still way higher than the rest. It's got a pretty extreme angle to it. Drac is back home or doing other things. He could not join us for this cruise. Would have been nice. We had him on our second cruise, but he does have responsibilities. So the last time we left this dry dock was in 1968. So it's been a few years. And when we did that, they headed out for sea trials just to test the ship, see the engines, see how everything runs. When they did that, they decided to push it. Our captain at the time was Captain Snyder. Captain Snyder, I think it was a bit of a cowboy. He knew what he wanted. So he very much pushed the ship as hard as he could. So they got it to 35.2 knots for about 4 hours during that time. So we will not be doing that today. We are only going to be going about 4 knots. But we're still the world's fastest battleship, which is what we achieved on that day in 1960. You can't quite see it from the angle on this camera. It's just too far behind us. The caisson that kept us the water out of the dry dock that they pulled out and removed from the dry dock this morning, they're already tugging it back into place. Usually takes them about 2 hours to get the caisson fully seated, and then they'll start to drain the water out of the dry dock. The yard is officially done with us. Their future work is not my purview, unfortunately, but last I heard, they're going to pull all the blocks out as soon as everything's high and dry. So they'll probably start doing that on Monday. Today, I think we have about 60 people on board, most of them working as line handlers. So they're doing the work of making sure we tied up to the tugs and then untied from the tugs and then tied up to the pier and all that, as well as having tank inspections. It's a tankless job, as we like to say. So they're making sure that there's no water coming in through the propeller shafts or into our tanks or engine rooms or anything like that. Because of that, we have quite a few people on board. Glad to hear at least some of you are getting a steady connection off of our internet. we are out in the river. I expect it will be spotty, so glad that some people can get it. So now that we have pretty much made our full and complete turn, now we've got the sort of simple part. We got a fairly straight cruise. We expect it to take about 2 hours. And yep, we've got a plane just coming down our bow right now. That happens about every minute, so it's nice and loud. For those of you who haven't heard too much about our project, we have completed a 78-day dry docking. We are very glad that the project went as well as it did. We are going to miss the yard. We did our final walk at the dock yesterday morning before reflooding, but it was a lot. Somebody might have cried before we left the dock. It was sad to leave. We have gotten very attached to all of our new friends at Philadelphia Ship Repair, part of North Atlantic Ship Repair, as well as all the contractors and everybody else. It'll be sad to see them go, sad to lose the bottom of the ship now that she's back on the water. But, you know, she's glad to be back in fighting condition. We'll have her back in Camden before we know it. Jupiter's not part of our tug operation today. If she makes it, she'll make it for our second tow, the one that brings us back to Camden. No, we don't have any flyovers or sail-bys or anything like that planned for today. This is a really short cruise. We're not going very far. We're saving most of the big excitement for next week, though I don't have full details on who all will be joining us or whether we're doing flyovers or anything like that. So, to be determined. We are getting overflown every minute, though, by various planes from the Philadelphia airport. I don't have a full timeline on what time we're going to be arriving at any location. So, sorry. We're figuring it out as we go. In our 78 days in dry dock, we spent roughly $10 million. And we were able to do that courtesy of the state of New Jersey, especially Battleship New Jersey receives operating support from the New Jersey Department of State. We very much appreciate the fact that the state of New Jersey was able to provide us with $5 million, which paid for half the project. Otherwise, the city of Camden guaranteed our bond for $3 million. So we appreciate their help as well. And I'm going to be honest, guys, I'm pretty sure, and it might be really hard to tell on this camera, yeah, but I think we're getting flown by it might be ospreys, but always nice to see the bird, not the aircraft. Always nice to see some wildlife joining us as well. They do like the Philadelphia Navy Yard. Otherwise, our $10 million project was supported by viewers like you. So the remaining $2 million of the project came from tours. We had 6,200 guests join us for tours. It raised $1.5 million to provide for the project, and then everything else comes from donations from people like you. So we really appreciate all of your support over the course of the last, honestly, 20 years since we became a museum. So we appreciate all that. You can always support us at battleshipnewjersey.org. We take donations there as well. Yes, today is all being done by tugboat. We have 4 tugboats doing the work. They're all from McAllister, with our tug captain being Captain Joe Benton. He's down on the 05 level in command of all of the operations today. So we will be live streaming next Thursday for our next cruise. Let's see, the calendar here says that we will be getting underway next week at approximately 11 a.m. So we'll start our live stream then, give or take. I definitely recommend some flexibility as far as your tune-in time because of that. There are several news channels streaming. You guys would know better than I would, so if you want to help each other out on where you can watch the news version of this. So it is part of our contract with the Navy that they can take the ship back and reactivate it if they ever want to. The Navy has never done that to a museum ship. The closest they got was when the Battleship Oregon was returned to the Navy. They did not use it as a battleship anymore. They're not going to use us. It's extremely unlikely. So we are going to stay a museum ship for the rest of our days. So we are now starting to really move. We have finished our turn. So we're just starting to get really underway. So we're going to veer slightly to the port here to our left side and head towards Paulsboro. So the reason that we're going to Paulsboro is we're going to deballast. We are going to take off 500,000 gallons, 2,000 tons of water off of the bow of the ship. That water was deliberately brought on board to weigh down the bow, so that way it matched up with the stern better. That just makes us sit flat. We are spending a little bit longer there than we did on the way down. It ends up being about a 2-day difference, though, so it's not significant. Just sort of the way that the tides worked out mostly. The other big issue is taking water off the ship does actually go slower than putting water on the ship. Putting water on the ship, we can put some pretty large, usually 6-inch pumps into the river and then pump directly into our tanks. We can't put 6-inch tanks, ballast tanks. They end up leaving a lot of water behind in the tank, so we have to use smaller pumps. Just goes a little bit slower. Our ballasting operation is being led by the folks at Resolve and North Star. They have been fantastic. We have managed to bring 1 million gallons through the ship so far. We are very much looking forward to taking 500,000 gallons off. So that will be done before we return next Thursday to Camden. Being about a week. So it's really not a huge time difference, luckily. Yes, Resolve and North Star have been both working on the ship in Baltimore that crashed into the bridge. They've been working on that. We've been keeping them in our thoughts and prayers because that is a really dangerous job. We love it when they come here because we know that this is a much safer job for them. But they've been doing really wonderful work getting the Baltimore stuff back in order so that way ships can get through there again. So again, we are expecting about another hour and a half or so until we arrive. We are flying our big flag. Definitely check all of our other social medias to see photos of elsewhere on the ship, some video footage. And Ryan will be here at some point to join us for our live stream. He's still doing his tankless job of those tank inspections. So residual moisture in the ballast tanks is going to be a challenge. The pumps will take most of the water out, and then there will be a series of dehumidification. If there is small amounts of water still left, we can use smaller pumps to get the last of it out, and lots and lots and lots of ventilation to get everything really nice and dry. Most unexpected find during dry docking, we were pretty surprised by the caulk that was in the riveted seams. So this ship is partially welded, partially riveted. Because of that, the Navy put a caulk in the riveted seams. We didn't know that. We hadn't found that paperwork that described that. We now know that it is a 2-part cold bonded polysulfide sealant, which is our favorite phrase to say now. So that was a little surprising. We did end up piecing it with a new 2-part cold bonded polysulfide sealant. We call it vehicle, which is actually the exact same product that was in there before. It worked for 30 years. It got pressure washed off when we cleaned the hull and we put new sealant on. Just keeping the water on the outside is rule number 1. We are keeping in touch with all the other museum ships. Our friend from Battleship Missouri just departed this morning. He came to see us. We also had some friends from Battleship Iowa. Wow, that plane is very close to us. Battleship Iowa, who've been here this week as well. We have seen folks from the Buffalo Museum, so that's the Sullivans and Croker and Little Rock. We've seen folks from Olympia and Bacuna right here in Philadelphia. So we've seen the folks from Intrepid came in full force to take tours. And those that haven't been able to come out and see us, we were in constant communication with them. Texas, for one, we talk to almost daily. Oh, yes, mob boss Paul Ferris came out. Thank you for describing him. He did come out and visit us, folks from Con. The folks from Texas, if you're unfamiliar, just finished dry docking their ship right around the time that we went in. So we've been calling them with lots and lots of questions. Did your ship have this? What did you do about that? So it's been very great to have them as a resource. They unfortunately have their own things going on, so we didn't see too much of them while we were here, but it was nice to stay in communication with them. And then next up to go to dry dock is USS Kidd. So we've been talking to them. about their preparations and their work. So lots and lots of other ship people. We do all talk to each other constantly. If you're unsure of that, go check out other museum ships on YouTube. Wow, that plane was close enough to make the deck shake. Very close to us. So if you check out either COD or KID or Texas on their YouTube channels, you'll find them making videos poking fun at us fairly regularly. KID had a good one this week. I do enjoy saying 2-part cold bonded polysulfide sealant. It took me a long time to learn how to say it. I'm going to use it as much as I can. We are not headed in the wrong direction because we are not headed to Camden. We're headed to Paulsboro. So I can actually see our dock from here. If you look on the left-hand side of the camera, you can see there's like 2 giant tanks that look like marshmallows, and there's a building there. We are headed to right next to that building. So we are very close to where we're going. We are just going to take the water off of the ship that we brought on board for ballasting. So it'll come off once we get there. We did see somebody from Alabama at one point, so we've seen most of the battleships. Yesterday, at one point, we had a Wisconsin sailor and crew from Missouri and Iowa here. So we had all 4 Iowa sailors together, which was really fun. We will have a nice picture of that posted somewhere sometime soon. For those of you unfamiliar, Texas's rudder is crooked, so come and straighten it is their catchphrase. Our rudders are not crooked, but we did have lots of fun pretending to push ours and reminding Texas that if they want to see a straight rudder, they can come see ours. Texas's rudder was never going to be straightened. There was never any intention to do it. It is locked in the last position that it was in when it was used. So it's slightly askew, but it's historically locked in that position, so there's no reason to change it. So she's pretty cool. I do not expect Admiral Katz or his wife to show up on our live stream. I'm glad that they showed up on the news, though. We are very glad to have Admiral Katz on board. He is one of our final captains. So always nice to see him back on board. It has been a while since he's been here, so glad to see him back. See, other people also want to say 2-part cold bond polysulfide sealant. Isn't it fun? Super fun. North Carolina, we did see some of the folks from Battleship North Carolina as well, so it's been great to see everybody here. Our next big field trip, if you guys are familiar here on this channel, we do like to go visit other museum ships whenever we can. We have visited a whole lot. I'm not sure who's next for us. I know that we'll be in San Diego in September on board USS Midway, so expect to see some video footage from that. We are going for the Historic Naval Ships Association Conference. So we'll definitely be there in September. However, there might be something between here and there. Ryan and I are in need of some vacation time, so we might stop by, go see some other ships. Getting over to see Belfast is a bit of an adventure, so I'm not sure we're going to make it to Belfast just yet, but hopefully next year. We've talked about doing it before. We're definitely interested in seeing ships outside of the United States. Just requires a little bit more work to do it. While we may not sell t-shirts that say 2-part cold bonded polysulfide sealant on them, we do sell all sorts of Drydock merch. So you should check out our website, battleshipnewjersey.org. We're selling lots of merch there from Drydock and parts of the teak deck. And the anodes we took off the ship will end up in our ship store eventually. I am not a captain under any way, state, or form. If anyone is calling me captain, that is because they wanted to, but I'm not actually a captain of anything. We'll definitely check out the Maritime Museum in San Diego while we're there. It's pretty great. The flags that you can see, the colorful ones in front of you, don't mean anything. They are called friendship flags. They're purely decorative. Each flag does mean a letter or a number, but they are not spelling anything out right now. They're in a specific nonsensical order, so that way sailors don't try and spell anything interesting, but it is not actually spelling anything. So they're just there because they're pretty. We do have hopes and dreams of eventually making it to the Battleship South Dakota Memorial. For those of you who are unfamiliar with them, they did as best as you can as far as putting a battleship in South Dakota. So they have parts of the ship there on display for people to see, which is really cool. It's sort of laid out in the same size, in the same places as if they had the whole ship. Very cool. We have no immediate plans to go, but we look forward to doing it someday. There will be lots of drone footage. We have many drones flying around. If you think that getting the live stream going here has a low resolution, trying to get the drone connected to it is that much harder. So that's going to have to wait until after we get home. Don't worry, it'll end up all posted on this channel. We post 5 nights a week. So we definitely have plenty of places to post this. Don't you worry, you'll see all about it at some point once we get that uploaded. As Ryan says, is the water still kept on the outside? So I have been keeping a weather ear out for our tank crews. I haven't heard anything from them yet, which is a good sign. I haven't heard our bilge alarms, which is a good sign, which means that the water should still be on the outside where it's supposed to be. So we are optimistic that we will make it the whole way back home with that water on the outside. And we're going to take the 500,000 gallons of deliberate water that's on the inside off the ship as soon as we pull into Paulsboro. In fact, many of the folks who are going to be doing that dewatering are already on board. Some of them will be meeting us there at the pier. They've got the equipment, but we're generally all ready to go. Oh, good. We've got Battleship Cove joining us. That's always nice. So glad to see you guys here. We hope to see you in Drydock sometime soon. Barnegat also could use some love. If you're unfamiliar with Barnegat, she is a lightship in Camden. Light ships are basically floating lighthouses. So she is in Camden. She is currently not open for visitation. She's got fish living in her engine room. But she is also very wonderful. If you want to see a light ship, there are something like 20 of them scattered around the country. Check out museumships.us for a good map of where to visit your local light ship. See. We do fit the Panama Canal, but it's a tight squeeze, but not on this cruise. However, the last major time the ship got underway, bringing her right here to Philly in 1999, she did go through the Panama Canal by tug. Going through the Panama Canal by tug is frightening for absolutely everybody. It's a very tight squeeze, especially for us. We've got less than a foot of clearance on either side. And via tugboat, it is not easy, especially. So, special props to those tug operators who manage that. We do have Ryan joining us on the bridge here.
Hey guys, just finished my first tank inspection while underway here. Ship is bone dry.
Would like to hear? Did you hear the 1MC up here?
I could not. Did the 1MC go off?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. What did it say?
No, we had the Admiral give the shift colors.
Oh, excellent, excellent. If any of you guys on the live stream didn't hear him say that, we did have Admiral, who was previously Captain Katz, do the official announcement to shift colors. So for those of you who weren't tuning in for the live stream during that point, we shifted colors from the naval jack on the bow and the ensign on the stern to the big giant American flag in amidships. So call for that was made by the captain, which is great.
We'll be doing the same thing in reverse once the first mooring line is passed from the ship to the pier in Paulsboro.
We are swiftly approaching Paulsboro. You can see that right off our bow there. That's what those buildings are that are kind of on the left-hand side of the screen. We're going to have to make a U-turn to be able to tie up there. But we're getting very close. It's a fairly short cruise altogether. For those of you tuning in, we happen to have our entire Drydock crew here, it seems like, up on the bridge from the Battleship that's been in the Drydock every day. Love how that worked out nicely. So it has been 78 long days and short months in the Drydock.
Only 2 or 3 lifetimes.
Only 2 or 3 lifetimes, yeah.
I want to know where this nice breeze was all those days at Drydock.
Ryan, are you ready to be going home? Are you excited to go home?
You know, if you had asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have said, no, I'm not ready to give this up yet. But right now, I'm feeling pretty done. It was pretty bittersweet seeing the ship's underside for possibly the last time. Certainly the last time in a long time. And knowing as we put the water in the dry dock that it might not get to see that again. So thankful that we got nearly 3 months there in dry dock, 2.5 months. So thankful that we were able to bring out about 6,200 people to see the ship. It was truly a once-in-a-lifetime experience for us and was certainly a highlight of my career.
So we've had some questions here on where we're going, how long we're going to be there, and all that. So we are currently headed to Paulsboro. This is where we stopped on our way over here. We're going to deballast. We're going to take off 500,000 gallons of water. That process will take about a week. We will get underway again next Thursday. Yes, we're going to live stream it. Of course, we're going to live stream it. It's this channel after all. Ooh, Fort Mifflin here. Hello, Fort Mifflin. So getting all the water off the ship probably won't take a full week, but it does go a little bit slower taking the water off of the ship than it takes getting on it. So we're giving ourselves some extra wiggle room. That is Fort Mifflin that we are passing. We're not doing any gun salutes today, just from a safety standpoint. It just didn't make sense today. But we do wave hello to them. I suspect there's somebody out there waving at us.
They opened early too.
Nice. The tragic flaws of being out here on the river is everybody landside looks itty bitty teeny tiny, so it's a little hard to see as we pass people. But I think I might see a few passing by. We are not concerned about needing ballast water to stay on the ship to get underneath the bridge. We took the mast off the bridge, and now we have, I think we decided it was 15 feet of clearance, something like that.
Depending on the tide.
Yeah. So we fit under the bridge fine. It is not a concern for us as far as needing to keep the ballast water on board during that. For the bridge, ooh, it is nice and breezy today, guys. It's blowing our camera around a little bit.
Pretty close to one we're going to tie off. But I'm pretty happy with what I've seen.
There are 4 tugboats. They are doing all the work today. We are not moving under our own power. It is all tugs. They're the ones who are actually moving us as well as doing all the turns. We have no functioning rudders or propellers or engines. It's all tugboats. Our tugboats are McAllister, with our tugboat captain being Joe Benton down on the 05. Ryan, the internet would like to inform you, actually, and while Marshall's here too, the internet would like to inform you that they want a t-shirt that says 2-part cold bonded polysulfide sealant.
I love that idea. We're also going to make a t-shirt with Ryan's face on it and says keep the water on the outside. So stay tuned to our store for that.
For those of you who can't wait, if you go to battleshipnewjersey.org/store, our online store is open right now.
And we are about to launch a brand new Shopify store in the next couple of weeks, which will be that much more user-friendly than our current site. So stay tuned.
Let's see.
There we go, the t-shirts. Anything with Ryan's face on it, it'll sell.
We do have plans to dredge back home. We were unable to dredge while we were here. The fish are spawning, so we just couldn't do it. But it will happen sooner or later. Trust me, when it happens, we will tell you all about it on our YouTube channel. For those of you unfamiliar, we post 5 nights a week. We've got 1,500 episodes. We can't possibly miss something that cool. Yes, the wind is definitely starting to pick up. But it's fortunately still within our safety parameters, so we're still cruising along. We are getting very close.
The ship will be back for the Beer Fest, although Beer Fest on the 22nd will not be happening on the ship. It will be happening on the pier, but for the person who asked, the ship will be back.
And we don't have a final reopening date, but we will definitely be open by 4th of July, folks. So if you want to get back on board, we're going to do it soon.
We're also open for 4th of July fireworks. This year, those are happening on Saturday, June 29th, and on July 3rd, which is a Tuesday, Wednesday?
I don't know what day of the week it is, but July 3rd, 9 o'clock, 9 p.m.
Yeah, I've been living for whatever tomorrow brings. I have no idea what's happening past that.
It is Fleet Week in Baltimore, so for those of you who like ships, go to Baltimore, go check them out. It makes a nice pit stop. It's only about 2 hours from us. So see us get underway. stopped in Baltimore. There are no more dry dock tours then. Yeah. No, if you want to take a tour of the dry dock, you can contact Philadelphia Ship Repair and they'll laugh. They'll laugh.
Just put a note in your calendar for 30 years from today and hit us up then.
So for those of you asking why she's writing nose down, she's not. That's a weird trick of the camera. If you saw her from the side, you'd see that the nose still sticks up pretty significantly. We have ballasted. We've got 500,000 gallons of water down on the bow. And she still sticks pretty far up at the nose. She has just that iconic angle. It's just a weird trick of the camera. She's not sticking nose down at all.
We all right. Yes, we love the kids' video. Maybe not Ryan, but the rest of us.
So the flags that are flying right now, they're friendship flags. They're not writing any particular message. They are in a specific order, but that specific order is nonsensical. There is not a message being spelled out. It's just supposed to be pretty. The ship did have a slight weight change in this process. Our anode material changed, and we added doubler plates, and we took paint off, and we put new paint on, and we added some other things. All told, for a 47,000 or 45,000 ton ship by the time we return to Camden, it's a marginal difference.
Yeah, by my math, we blasted off 12 tons of paint, and we applied 18 tons of paint. We removed 6 tons of anodes, and we replaced them with 4 tons of anodes. 3 tons of anodes, and we added 4 tons of steel onto the ship. So a pretty negligible difference all told.
I'm going to tell you folks, while some of it is the wind, for the first time ever, and this is now our 3rd cruise, I can actually feel the ship moving.
Can you? I'm not sure I can.
Like, she's moving pretty good. I don't have a total number. Have you passed by Joe Benton at all? Do we have a speed?
Yeah, we're going.
Last cruise, we generally moved at 4 knots. So we're probably going about there, but it does actually feel like we're moving.
How many knots are we going right now?
And we got the official call down to our tugs. We'll see what they say.
Worth pointing out that we are going against the tide, so that's slowing us down some.
That might partially be why it looks like we're going so fast as well.
We left the dry dock at as high a tide as we could just to make sure the ship safely cleared the sill of the dry dock on our way out, which means that we are fighting our way against an outgoing tide as we come up the river here.
So somebody's got a good question whether we're tying up with the same lines as before, and actually we do have brand new mooring lines. We're super excited about those. We do have new ones. They need to be replaced every few years. Now is the perfect time to do it. It's not the easiest thing to replace. If we gotta tie up again, we might as well use the new ones for it. So,
but they're not on now. We're going to use them for the 20th.
Yeah.
Right, get it here.
And wool hair.
It's underway here.
We should totally use the flags next time to spell out 2-part cold bonded polysulfide sealant. That is exactly what I'm going to do next time.
That's a fantastic idea.
They cannot stop me. It is my new favorite phrase. It took me forever to learn how to say it. It's cool.
The one that found the document. So.
So we are keeping a watchful eye on our chafing gear. So that's the stuff that keeps the mooring lines from rubbing up against the ship. Some of it will get replaced. It's things that gets replaced as it gets broken. But we are keeping a watchful eye on it as we do the new lines. In all honesty, our propellers failing to move doesn't really slow us down because, like, we're going 4 knots. We're just not going fast enough that makes any sort of difference. We're not really concerned about drag.
Yeah, with one engine down, with one propeller locked, the Battleship could still do 26 knots.
So we have some signal flags, not the friendship flags fore and aft, but we do have some signal flags that we can't see from here hanging off the side of the ship. So we have our call sign up and PNSY, Philadelphia Naval Shipyard, I believe.
We also have Admiral Katz's 3-star flag up and Secretary of the Navy Brightwaite's SecNav flag up, along with, of course, the American flag and the friendship flags.
So we were not launched from the dry dock today. Launching is the first time that your ship goes in the water. We were launched from a slipway in 1942. not today. So because of that, there was none of the formal launching ceremonies. We didn't break a champagne bottle, any of that. Just coming out of Drydock, so not quite the same event. The wetsuit flag is not flying today because we are flying some Admiral's flags instead. Just too many flags. And wetsuit flag, honestly, it's an artifact in our collection, and the wind's blowing really hard. So to keep it safe, it is sitting down below. On our next cruise, if the weather is better, we might consider flying it, to be determined.
Yeah, the wind's blowing at 10 knots, and we're expecting a rainstorm tonight, so we are getting gusts right.
Use our engines. We're a museum. That's the way that works. Some museum ships can use their engines, but the vast majority of them can't and don't. We're not legally allowed to, so we move by tug. We got 4 tugs today. They're doing all the work. They're doing a fantastic job. There are people looking for leaks. Ryan here has been on tank inspections today. Hasn't found any so far?
Nothing at all.
It's good. All told, it is 5 teams of 2, so there are quite a few people down there who've been doing those inspections. They're making sure that water isn't coming in through any of the new places that we've welded. We did a lot of work on our propeller shaft, so we want to make sure that that is all actually watertight. So everything seems good so far. Jupiter is not participating today. That is a tugboat that helped launch the ship and has participated in some of our activities in the past and will hopefully be joining us next week, but she's not with us today. All of our tugs are McAllister. I couldn't tell you the name of all of the tugs.
We have McAllister Responder. We have Reed McAllister. We have Suzanne McAllister. And the 4th one was... I feel like it had a Mary in it somewhere.
Maybe. Yep, we are passing by Philadelphia Airport.
We were going 5.4 knots.
If you couldn't hear that, that's 5.4 knots. That is significantly faster than what we did on the first cruise. And considering this is a very short one, that does make a difference.
So that is 10 knots of wind coming at us over the bow, plus the ship going 5 knots. That's 15 knots. So another reason why we don't have an artifact flag flying today.
Yep. So on our port side here, you can see this sort of like series of structures. That is Paulsboro. That is where we are headed. So that empty section there, just in front of those ships that are parked there, that is where we're going. We are going to end up here in Paulsboro for about a week. We'll move again next Thursday. So which means right now it looks like we are starting to make our turn. We got to make a U-turn before we end up back at the pier. Admiral Katz is on board. He seems to be wandering around some. I think he was on the bridge for a little while. Not sure where he is now. Today we are filming from up here on the 08 bridge. So he's not up here with us, but there is the main navigation bridge on the 04 is probably where he is. We have considered making replica flags. We are working on it. We just haven't managed to pull that off just yet. We actually didn't even know we had this flag until not that long ago. So we're still waiting on that. The original flag is handmade and very much one of a kind. So not easy to replicate.
It was definitely made on board the ship around 1989, 1990, somewhere in that time frame. And if you go back and watch the original video we made about it, we made that video the day that we found the flag. So whatever date is on that video tells you how recently we found it. It was in a trash bag in one of the uptake spaces just after the wardroom. And we were cleaning out that uptake, throwing away a bunch of the old stuff that didn't belong there and the original ship stuff, putting it out where it went. And we were pretty close to throwing that trash bag away until we opened it up and looked at what was inside. And Libby immediately recognized it from some of the pictures of the ship where it was flying.
I'd like to give a special shout out to the museum's maintenance department, the Dennises and Fitz and Jay and Dave and Megan and everybody else. They actually found the trash bag, and being as wonderful as they are, they brought it to us instead of just assuming that it was trash. They have been with the almost all of them have been with the museum for a very long time, and they know that before they throw anything away, they should always check with us. That's also how we found the nuclear launch keys and the reduction gear keys, is them just cleaning out stuff and bringing it to us. So they're pretty fantastic. Somebody mentioned a little bit earlier that Jason Hall, Ryan here's predecessor, really would have loved to have seen this, and we're thinking about him today. He passed away a few years back, but
When Jason hired me to work with him here on the Battleship, he told me this would have been in late 2017. He said that the ship needs to be dry docked. She's overdue. There is currently no plans, but you've done this before. I think you can get it done in 5 years. It has been 6.5 years. Unfortunately, we had a pandemic in there in the middle that threw us off.
The ship is being completely steered by tugboats. It is being really driven by tugboats. The tugboats are doing all the work. The ship is really just a floating piece of steel. It's not doing any of the steering or moving on its own. Yeah, and you guys are right. While our maintenance department is fabulous, a special shout out to everybody from Philadelphia Ship Repair and our various contractors who participated in this dry dock project. We've been out of the water for 78 days. And a whole lot of work was done. We got a fresh coat of paint. We blasted off the old paint before we did that. Brand new anodes as part of our cathodic protection system. New plates were added where needed. Our propeller shafts got a once-over. All of our through-hull openings got inspected and repaired as needed. So a lot of great work. So special thanks to everybody there.
Robert McAllister was the 4th tugboat.
There we go. Somebody's asked if a president has ever been on board. Yeah, the ship was recommissioned by Ronald Reagan in the 1980s. So we've had a president on board. We do.
That would have been December of 1982.
Yeah. So visiting the ship in Drydock, there were about 6,200 people who came to take a Drydock tour, which was awesome. They came from all over the world. We saw folks from Hong Kong and Japan and Korea, as well as all over the United States. And, you know, the entire state of Maryland, it felt like, plus multiple visits from Ryan's parents. So that was great.
Maryland loves museum ships. What can I say?
Maryland does love museum ships.
My favorite 2 statistics about our visitors, about 10% of them were international travelers. 50% of them had never been on board the ship before. Some of them didn't even know we were normally open as a museum.
The vibrations you're seeing on the camera are not from the ship, but from the wind. The wind is blowing really hard. I'm literally standing here trying to hold the camera steady because it keeps getting blown around in the wind. But we're trying to keep it where it's supposed to be. It is very windy up here. And of that $10 million that we spent to do this project, I'd like to remind you that the Battleship New Jersey receives operating support from the New Jersey Department of State. The state of New Jersey paid for $5 million of that $10 million project. We couldn't have done it without their support. $3 million in a guaranteed bond from the county of Camden. Thank you very much. And of course, all the support from viewers like you. If you would like to support us, you too can go to battleshipnewjersey.org. Our store is there if you'd like to buy your own New Jersey merch, though we don't have t-shirts that say 2-part cold bonded polysulfide sealant yet, but we're getting there. I might make one for myself. But we also have a link to our donations as well. Every dollar goes right back into the maintenance and restoration of this great ship. Now that we have finished dry docking, we've got a couple of big projects ahead of us. What's next?
Well, we're still in the process of finishing the teak wood deck. Before the end of this summer, maybe before the end of this month, we're going to finish laying the teak on the main deck. We have everything done except the top layer in a small area right by the quarterdeck. So that's what we'll be working on the rest of the summer. And then we've got the teak deck and the superstructure that'll probably be most of the end of this year and next year's project. That should wrap it up. We're probably more than 80% done that project. Our next major project is going to be painting the freeboard of the ship. So while we were in dry dock, we painted everything below the waterline. The next thing is to paint the above water part of the hull. We didn't want to do that in dry dock for 2 reasons. One, the tugboats and the fenders here at Paulsboro are going to damage that paint. So there's no point in putting on a new coat and then getting it damaged right away. And 2, we never do anything in dry dock that we can do at our own pier because we're paying something like $25,000 a day just to sit on the blocks. So we focus exclusively on exterior below water work while we were in dry dock. When we paint the freeboard is still up for debate. We may well do that starting this summer. That was the original plan. However, We may bump it to next spring, depending on how other parts of the project shake out. That's not a funding thing. The funding is leftover stuff from Drydock that we do have available. It's more of how that lines up with other projects that we have going on. A painting project that the volunteers and some of our Eagle Scouts are going to be working on throughout the summer is repainting the missile decks. That's one of the worst looking parts of the ship right now. The great thing about the restoration work we've been is every time we repair a space, it bumps another space down to being the worst looking. And so our current worst looking space is nowhere near as bad looking as the one we had a couple of years ago, because we are getting ahead of it.
So we've had some questions here about, now I've completely lost it, our reopening. So we're hoping to reopen pretty quickly once we get back. In reality, our goal is we got to be reopened by 4th of July. So it won't be late July, nothing quite so dramatic. We'll be open soon.
And my hope is no more than 3 weeks from now. We still have to do nearly a full week of deballasting before we get back to Camden, and then it'll take something like 10 days or so once we're in Camden to finish hooking up all the power, get the gangways back on, get all of our other hotel services connected, make sure it's all working, get the air conditioning back on. What do you say to air conditioning, Livy?
Oh, air conditioning. I dream about air conditioning.
I can't remember the last time I felt air conditioning.
So that reminds me, a couple of the things I'm really thinking about in our return home. I have already switched out. I took off my steel-toed shoes. I'm in sneakers now. We have left the dock. So now we're back to our regular operating procedures there. I'm looking forward to not wearing a hard hat anymore. Looking forward to not climbing the Drydock stairs anymore. Looking forward to seeing guests every day. What are you looking forward to?
Well, I left my steel-toed boots on. It'll make it easier to go down with the ship if that's necessary. I don't know how construction workers do it. Yard people, that sort of stuff. I don't know. Getting up that early is not my favorite thing.
Yeah, I think everybody at Philly Ship Repair got in at 6, which is just fabulously early.
Which I guess is fine if you're also leaving at 2 o'clock. But we weren't. We were still leaving at the same time we always do. We were just working longer hours.
We've had a couple of questions about how the dry docking has affected the deck project. So the deck project in reality has been able to continue on while we've been here. And we also were able to tackle a couple of spots that were just really difficult to do at home because of their location. Like our main entrance has been finally redecked. We're looking forward to showing that off once we reopen. They are not quite done, but it should be nice and done by the time that we reopen, have everybody on board for 4th of July. So they are just about done, that last little section. We have been redecking the ship's deck for the last 5 years. It's been a $5 million project. It was our last big capital project prior to dry docking. And in reality, while we are just about finished with the main deck, we still have plenty more work to do up in the superstructure. These areas are going to go slower. They are smaller, but harder to work in. There's not as much space to include your tools there. We will off the ship on our website. We have been having some difficulties as far as figuring out shipping them. They weigh 23 pounds. They're not easy to move. They break the cardboard boxes we put them in. So we will eventually be selling them once we've worked out the logistics on that. So once we get home.
Oh, you see these 2 ships here tied up at Paulsboro? The rumor I heard was that they were both moved at 3 a.m. this morning to make room for the Battleship here at the forward end of the pier that's going to come into, there it is, coming into frame on the camera. So we are currently more or less holding station in the middle of the river while the tugs turn us 180 degrees on an axis that's more or less the center line of the ship. So you're seeing Paulsboro come into view. The airport is now more or less directly astern of us. They're going to bring us around so that our starboard side is lined up against the pier. That way, 6 days from now, when we tow the ship back to Camden, her bow's already pointed in the right direction.
We don't have the final details on our move for next Thursday yet, but it looks like we're going to be moving starting around 11 o'clock. So we are excited about that. We'll get final confirmation on our exact departure times to you soon. Stay tuned on our Facebook page with all the details, as well as all of our YouTube channel.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff Barta, just saw you on chat. Where's everybody else coming from? Jeff is down in the DC area. Where are all you guys?
I've seen some folks tuning in from Europe and elsewhere, but it doesn't look like too many of the folks in the United States have told us where they're coming from. So make sure you let us know. It's always fun to watch. That has been one of the weird things about her being out of the water is we could see just how much more ship there really was. You really can't tell how big a ship is until she's fully out of the water.
Australia? What time of the morning is it in Australia? Or evening?
Canada.
Baltimore loves museum ships.
Sweden. Oh, wow.
Poland.
It's now moving very quickly.
The motherland.
There's more Australians, some in the UK, Japan, Belgium. Nice to see everybody.
Okinawa.
Somebody asked if we had a gym on board. We had a couple of them.
Yeah, the Marines had their own gym. The enlisted sailors had a gym. It seems like the gym even moved at various points throughout the ship's career. It seems like the only time we had official gyms on board, though, were during the 1980s. We've got no evidence that there was something similar earlier on. Although there were athletic gear lockers for things like sporting equipment for when the ship's football team, baseball team, bowling team, whatever the case was, practiced or went ashore and played.
So as a recap, because we've had a bit of a jump in our viewers, right now we are pulling around. We're making a U-turn, essentially. We're going to end up mooring here to the pier that's directly in front of us. That is Paulsville. From there, we're going to deballast. We're going to take off 500,000 gallons of water. We put that water on board the ship so that way we could weigh down the ballast. That way she moved, or she came off and on the blocks as needed evenly. From there, we will move again next Thursday back home to Camden, where we can open as a museum by 4th of July.
We put all of this water in the tanks that are forward of frame 50. Bulkhead 50 is the forward armored bulkhead, so it's right at the front of turret number 1. So basically, every tank forward of that has water in it, including the peak tanks.
While the ship was in service, this was having ballast water on board in certain places made sense. They could move things around as they needed to. They also had ammunition and fuel and all sorts of things on board. We keep our ship very light. So today, with all the ballast water on board, she's 47,000 tons. We typically sit at 45,000 tons in Camden. So we sit very light. Yep, after we drain all the water out, the tanks will all get cleaned. And eventually a fresh coat of paint as well, and everything dehumidified so everything goes back to nice and dry and pretty the way it was before. Thank you, whoever's in the Netherlands who donated. It's a $10 million project, and every...
Kroner?
I think Kroner, right? Euro? I think they're euros now.
Oh, right, euros. That's a thing.
But it all helps. Every little bit counts. So thank you for your support. For those of you who are interested in supporting us, you can either support us directly through YouTube or go to battleshipnewjersey.org. We got a donation page there as well. It all goes right back into the ship. We've got a whole lot of projects ahead of us. Just because Drydock is done doesn't mean that we are done restoring the ship. She is 81 years old.
81 years young.
81 years young for sure.
Her best years are still ahead of her.
So we definitely need more work to keep her in fighting condition for the years to come.
Except right now we fight Cub Scouts.
Oh, That is a good point, though. Our kids programming is back once we reopening. We haven't been able really to have kids in the Drydock. It's just not a safe place for them. So we're looking forward to seeing the Cub Scouts again once we get back to Camden. Overnight programs and school trips and stuff like that. Our ticket prices should be staying exactly the same as they were 6 months ago.
A little bit less than the Drydock coverage, or Drydock tour.
For those of you who missed it, we had 6,500 people join us for Drydock tours. If you'd like the full tour, we just did a mini sort of version recap of the project yesterday. Oh, wow. Thank you from Atlanta. That's very supportive. We did a sort of a recap of the project yesterday on this channel, and there'll be a full walking tour of the Drydock posted on our YouTube channel probably next week. We filmed it before we left. It's filmed, just needs to be edited together in our copious free time that we will have.
Yeah, that episode's going to be somewhere between 60 and 90 minutes long.
Yeah.
But it's the tour that I normally gave of the Drydock. If you can say there was a normal tour. As we did more work during the project, the tour changed. So this very much is the project is over. Here's the work that we did tour, as opposed to at the beginning, here's the work that we think we're going to do and how we think we're going to do it. Spoiler, didn't always work out that way.
Dry docking, we expect to take about a week. We need to be finished by next Wednesday when we get underway next Thursday. Dewatering always takes longer than watering. We have to use smaller pumps just to be able to get them into the tanks. Then we can pump directly out of the Delaware. So it moves a little bit slower. So we don't have full details on exactly how long it'll take, but it'll take a little while.
This is definitely the part of the project that I am most worried about, is getting the water inside the ship, because 18 years I've worked in the museum ship field. We keep the water on the outside, putting 2,000 tons of water inside the ship. Very foreign to me. I don't like it at all. Many of you have adopted that as my slogan. Like we said earlier, we're going to put that on a t-shirt, keep the water on the outside. What do you think is a good slogan that you'd like to see on a t-shirt from the Battleship? My favorite one is something that USS Slater does that says, "I'm getting too old for this ship." Ship with a P.
Special thanks to those of you guys who've been donating. It's very supportive, helping us keep this project going. We still have much work left to do, keep this ship around for another 81 years and so forth. Fortunately, because it is actually potable water that we put into the ship, and it stayed contained within the tanks, it doesn't require much before it gets pumped right back into the river, so it is nice. Ooh, what advice would you give other museum ships going into Drydock? Like perhaps our friends at Kidd who are about to go in. Maybe the Sullivans soon?
That's a tough one. I boil it down to one lesson learned.
Well, you think about that.
Yeah, we'll come back to that later.
If I wanted to tell them anything, it's more sentimental, but like, take it in, enjoy it. You know, the days are long, but the weeks are short, and take all the pictures you can while you can.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It'll end.
Document everything. Your successors down the line 30 years from now will absolutely thank you for any documentation that you do. We did not have the full documentation going into the Drydock. We thought we did, but we definitely didn't. And so that caused some issues for us. So document everything that you do. Just saw a sign in from Bill Verge down on USS Ingham.
Hey.
She's a museum ship in Key West, Florida, and the sister ship of one of the museum ships I've worked on in the past. Anybody else here work on museum ships or volunteer on them? Give us a shout out.
While we do that, yes, that is our bow that you're looking at there. We're looking dead ahead. We are currently in the process of actually being pushed off our starboard side, or towards our starboard side, headed towards Paulsboro right here. That's our pier over there. So we have not too much further to go. We're just
Oh, you see that? The
Come
bus
up
is
to our
already
pier.
on the pier waiting to take our ride-alongs off. Some folks get to go back to Philadelphia Ship Repair and pick up their cars. Some of us are stuck here to start dewatering operations.
We do begin dewatering operations as soon as we arrive at the pier. They're going to set up a gangway. We'll get people off the ship. We're going to pull these decorative flags down, and then the water starts coming off. We're going to start putting pumps in tanks immediately. So we've got a long day ahead of us still. Ryan and I's day started at 3:30 this morning. So we're already in the thick things.
I suspect it'll end around 6:30 or 7 o'clock tonight.
Yeah. And then we still got a week ahead of us of deballasting. Those tend to be long 12-hour days, getting that water off the ship. Like I said, we move again next Thursday, and then we've got a few long days getting the ship ready to get reopened for you guys by 4th of July. So we've got a ways to go before we're done with this project, but we're getting close. So we have no specific details on when we're going to be painting the above water part of the ship. The freeboard, that's the sort of part of the hull that's above the water. That's going to hopefully get painted this summer, might get put off just a little bit as we work out details on that. And then the superstructure of the ship is being painted as we do the decks. So that's getting done over the course of the next couple of years, to be honest. So we're getting close to finished on that one as the decks are getting finished. For those of you curious about volunteering, we do take volunteers on the ship. Again, go to battleshipnewjersey.org. There is a page on there about how you can become a volunteer. We take volunteers to help talk to visitors, as well as polish brass, visitors who chip paint, or volunteers who chip paint, and people who do all sorts of specialized things like work with our radios or other equipment. So if you want to volunteer, please reach out. If you're not near us, but you're interested in volunteering there, I'm sure there's a museum ship near you that would love your help. We will put a new coin underneath the mast when we put the mast back on. We don't have a confirmed date for when the mast goes back on. Don't you worry. It will be all over our YouTube channel as well. We'll definitely show you the coin when we do it.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil too much, but we're putting a little display together. It's not going to be a single coin like last time. It's going to be a group of coins that add up to the ship's hull number. So it'll be 62 cents worth. Those coins is going to say 1943 when the ship is commissioned.
For those of you asking about watching the ship move next week, we have a tentative plan at arriving back at our pier after 1 o'clock. The best place to watch the ship, honestly, come to our pier. We're throwing a party. There's going to be food trucks, and there's better parking there than in most of these places. So it's a great place to come and watch. It's just from our pier. If that doesn't suit you, the crowd's a little bit too concerning. Penn's Landing, where Olympia and Bakuna are also a great place to watch. A little bit less of a formal watch party over there, but also great. And then you can go visit Olympia and Bakuna, and I'm sure they could use your support too. We are getting pushed up against our pier now. This entire operation was done by tugs. Thank you, McAllister Tugs, and Captain Joe Benton, who's in charge of that whole operation. We've also had a river pilot on board who's been fantastic. We got here safe and sound. We traveled not so far, but we did get up to, what did they say, 5.5 knots?
At least 5.5 knots.
Not bad. And our next cruise is going to be a little bit longer. Maybe we'll get up even faster. As a recap, our project, we spent 78 days out of the water. In that time, we repainted the hull, inspected the through-hull openings where water had previously been allowed to come into the ship for things like boilers and drinking water. We took a look at our propeller shafts, did a little bit of work on them, inspected the hull thickness, and did some work where it was thin. We changed out our cathodic protection, and all told, did a general overall survey of the ship just to see what was there, the condition of everything. So it was a productive 78 days. I'm not sure I'm ready to go home. It was sad to see it go, but it'll be nice to be reopened again. as we approach the pier here, once we actually put down our first line, we're going to once again shift colors. So the big holiday flag that is flying in midships, some of you guys might have seen on the news, that one's going to come down, and then the flags on the bow and stern will come up. So we've got the ensign, the American flag, that'll come up on the stern, and the naval jack on the bow. The naval jack is something we get a lot of comments about because it looks like a ripped American flag. It is not. It is literally just the stars portion of the American flag. It didn't lose its bars. It's just supposed to be the stars. So that'll go from the bow. You'll be able to see that on this camera when that goes up. We still have a little bit of a distance from the pier, so we're not quite ready to do that, but that is our next phase. We'll put that first line on and then change flags. Once we shift colors, we'll probably kill our live stream, but you can always tune in on this channel. We are here 5 nights a week, Monday to Friday, 7 o'clock Eastern time, with all things Battleship New Jersey. We did measure the ship, and we feel pretty confident in the numbers that we've always used, 887.7. But we did measure it just in case. For those of you asking, no, the ship does not move under its own power. It is moving completely by tugs. We are not allowed to use the ship's power. That was a rule that the Navy gave us. That is our pier that we are headed towards. We are just about there, but we are not quite there yet. So we have half the weight of the previous anodes because we're using a different material. So we are now using aluminum anodes instead of zinc. Zinc was practical for a saltwater environment. We are in a freshwater, turning brackish environment, so we're using aluminum instead. We are using half the number of anodes that we had before, but they're twice as thick, so it ends up being the same amount of material. It's just a different material and therefore lighter, so it's not the same.
Yeah, so that ended up shaving about 3 tons of weight off of the ship, which is good because we put an extra 4 tons of steel on the ship and an extra roughly 6 tons of paint.
The engines haven't been disassembled, but they can't just be started. Starting these engines, even when they're being actively maintained by the ship's crew, still takes a long time. They can't just be started up. But because ours haven't been maintained in 30 years, it would be quite an endeavor to get them going again. We're not allowed to. We're forbidden from doing that by the Navy. We are not even going to try. We're going to be tied to the pier. We just have some more lines that are going to go out. This is a temporary arrangement. We will be leaving here again next Thursday, so we're not anchoring or anything. We will do that when we get back to our home pier. And you are correct. We do receive operating support from the New Jersey Department of State. Thank you so much for commenting that. We do like to remind everyone that we are appreciative of the state for supporting us. But we do also rely on funding from viewers like you to help us get through these major restoration projects. This is a whole battleship. It requires a whole lot of work, and the volunteers are great, but it does also require funding for paint and things like that. So thank you for supporting us. Each museum ship has a different relationship with the Navy. So some museum ships have an ability to run their engines. Tends to be like the Liberty ships. So John W. Brown and Jeremiah O'Brien both can run theirs. Some museum ships, like Cod, runs their diesels. Is that what it is?
Silverside's definitely does. There's a couple other subs that can run their diesels. Generally, the museum ships that became museums earlier have fewer restrictions than those of us that became museum ships in the 2000s. But also, some museum ships were not donated by the U.S. Navy through NAVSEA. Some of them were returned to the United States to museums from other nations that they had served with after their U.S. Navy service. And so those ships do not come with the same contracts.
We do not have a reopening date for the museum. We'll be reopened by 4th of July, though. We will have Beer Fest on our pier, but we'll be open sometime soon. The Navy does not come to inspect the ship. We do not fall under Navy purview. They are not interested in our project at all to dry dock the ship. Naval History and Heritage Command, who is sort of the history branch of the Navy, we have a great relationship with them. They loan us artifacts. We ask them lots of questions. We bother them a lot with our questions. But there's no formal inspection process for making sure that we're maintaining their vessel and things like that. It's not something that happens anymore. The deck work is not quite complete, but it is almost done on the main deck, which is making her wheelchair accessible. By midsummer, the main deck will be all finished. We're almost done with that. The Navy forbids starting the engines for reasons that they do not detail in the contract. But honestly, running the engines is very dangerous. There's a lot of steam. That is your highest chance for a fire and destroying the artifact, and they don't want that. And they don't want us sailing the ship down to Delaware and starting a war.
But also, when these ships were decommissioned, large parts of the engineering equipment were taken apart, plumbing decoupled, things like that, to allow air in to ventilate it. Also, things like the reduction gears are filled with cosmoline, a preservative oil. So that would have to be drained and then replaced with lubricating oil. That is not an easy process. And if we started to decide, hey, we want to fire up an engine, and we start messing with it, we get the cosmoline out, well, as soon as we do that, the engine starts to deteriorate, which means that if the ship is ever needed again by the Navy for whatever reason, those engines are no longer able to be made operable because they've deteriorated, which then means that the ship is no good, because cutting through the 6-inch armored deck to get down to the engineering spaces, removing the entire superstructure to do that, and then replacing the engines that in this scenario we would have allowed to deteriorate, just too cost prohibitive.
We'll get you everywhere we can around the main deck and things like that. Yes, there is an expression in dry docks: no cash, no splash. So yes, there was a big fat check that needed to be signed to get the ship back out here.
I believe that was wire transferred yesterday.
Special thanks to North Atlantic Ship Repair. That is the company that owns.
So obviously, we had to remove a lot of the exhibits. The tour route was all torn up. They didn't get to see the ship as if she were open. Large parts of the ship were locked up. So over the next several weeks, we're going to put all that back together, and it'll be a whole different experience for any of the yard birds who come back and visit us.
For those asking, Iowa was able to rotate a gun turret. We are not. It seems like the electrical wiring inside of Iowa's turrets was retained more than ours was. Ours were missing so much of it would be a major undertaking to be able to get it going again. And it was a major undertaking for Iowa to get theirs going again. It's not in the cards for us for right now. It's not one of our priority projects. We decided to dry dock the ship. That cost us $10 million. Just a little bit more important to us right now.
Redecking the ship was another $5 million. Now we got to do some topside work.
So we are getting very close to this pier. We are almost there. Which means we might need to start getting into position to shift colors again. Are we shifting colors again?
Yeah, we're going to shift colors. So I'm going to head out.
Thank you for joining us, Ryan. Tune in, folks. You can find Ryan again on the rest of our channel. Future plans for restoration, we are going to paint everything above the waterline. So that's the next big thing. Shifting colors is the process of taking the flag down, the big American flag down from the center of the ship, and we're going to put up the smaller flags that are at the bow and the stern. It just indicates that we're moored. We're back at the pier. So once the first line is secured, we are ready to go. If you look really closely on your on your screen there, you can see sort of on the right-hand side of the ship on the starboard side, we got a couple of our line handlers. They've got the line through the side there. They are ready to toss that line ashore as soon as we get close enough to the pier to do so. So we're getting very, very close. So we'd love to let the flag keep flying. It is Flag Day, but it is tradition that when you are moored, that you do not fly your flag amidships like where we are now. So we're following naval tradition by taking that flag down. We will put up another flag. It's just in a different location. It's just changing locations. We are going to have to put up a smaller flag in the new location because honestly, if we flew the really big flag off of the stern, it would probably hit the water. That's how big it is. Never mind hit the deck. And we want to make sure that we don't do that. We don't want the flag on the ground. There will be lots of drone footage of the move. You probably can't see it on camera, but we have just a swarm of drones around us. That will end up on this channel probably over the next week or so. My phone's been buzzing since I got here, telling me that we've got some footage already. So we're just waiting patiently for us to connect back to decent internet so that way we can upload that. So we're getting close. Once we tie up to the pier here, we are going to sort of take down our up and over our friendship flags here, our decorative flags, and then we start dewatering basically immediately. We are going to take down the really simple. We're going to take down, I don't know where that sentence was going, folks. We have 500,000 gallons of water that we're going to take off the ship. They need to come out so that way we don't have water resting inside. We put it on board so we could come off the dry dock blocks evenly. So, yes, I can see the chat. Send me any comments that you have. We are fortunate that we do not need to typically carry ballast water, so it will be coming off the ship and we won't be holding on to it much longer. We like to keep the water on the outside, as we say. We are getting very close to this pier. So one of the things that this view is slightly misleading about is our bow does angle in significantly. So our wide hips are much closer to the pier than our bow is. So we have now got quite the gathering of folks watching us get very, very close. We are just about there. Greeting us here on the pier. It looks like we've got local PD making sure everything stays nice and safe for us, as well as some of the folks helping us with our dewatering and the bus to take everybody back home to Philly. So most of our crew here gets to depart once we hit the pier. And then after that, the rest of us will stay behind to finish that dewatering. Thank you, Eddie. I do love 2-part cold bonded polysulfide sealant, and I'm going to miss saying it so often. The friendship flags will go down. We store them in spaces on second deck, so one deck below the main deck. So they come down. No, nobody actually lives on board the ship, not even during dry dock. We do all go home sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it, but we do, in fact, go home. We do have 24-hour security, but even they don't live on board. So we're in kind of a weird, tight spot here, so we don't have a lot of flexibility for moving our camera around. But you can still see the pier and the bow, so that's about as good as it's going to get. Our dewatering operation, taking off that 500,000 gallons of water, is going to be done over the course of the next approximately week. All told, we're taking it off fairly slowly. We have to use fairly small pumps to do it, just because we've got to get it into the tanks to be able to do it. So it goes fairly slow. But because we have to use smaller pumps than when we brought the water on board, we don't have a total information of exactly how long it's going to take. We've got some guesswork, but we will be departing Paulsboro next Thursday to return home to Camden. So we are very close. We will absolutely be live streaming the rest of the journey home. I expect to start the live stream next week, I think at 11. Stay tuned on our YouTube channel and the Battleship's Facebook page and get all of the details. I'm up here on the 08 level, so 8 levels above the main deck. The primary steering position is technically here. It wasn't used as often as the lower levels of the bridge on the 04, but this is technically considered to be the primary con. So for those of you just joining us, we are about to come up to our pier. That's what you're seeing on the right side, so that way we can moor. And then we'll be done with our cruise. We do have a diesel generator on board. It is providing us with our power today. That's what's keeping our computer and our camera running today. The ship's emergency diesel generators do not work anymore. They require water to cool them. We do not bring water into the ship through the hull anymore. That was a big part of our project, is making sure that that doesn't happen. So therefore, we just have a portable generator. And then we do have portable pumps staged throughout the ship in case we have any water intrusion issues while underway. We had Ryan and our tank teams doing a tankless job of inspecting all those to confirm that we didn't have any water intrusion. We were lucky. We did not have any problems. It was all an easy cruise. Have on board just in case we ran into any issues. Fortunately, with such a short cruise, honestly, we could have made it back to the pier and dewatered when we got here, unless we had something absolutely catastrophic happen, like say we got hit by some torpedoes. Even then, we'd have to get hit by quite a few to still not make it to the pier. It's a short cruise. I can see the pier we came from here. Our cruise next Thursday will be a little bit longer. It's about 6 miles. We are getting very close to the pier now. First line should be going out in just a moment. I am watching our line handlers as they eagerly look towards the pier. And we're getting very, very close. We have had multiple cameras running throughout this entire cruise, so stay tuned. We'll usually, the last 2 cruises, we did a recap of the cruise where we got to show you some of that other fun footage from the drones, from our other shots elsewhere. So look for those. They will end up elsewhere on our channel, probably starting early next week. So look for those. Our line haulers tend to be using just like it's like a weighted ball on a line, on a rope that they can toss ashore, and that's how they've been transferring those. So all told, pretty simple, nothing too exciting. This is your view of the pier. If we look any further to the side, there's nothing, we can't even see the pier anymore. So that is our view of the pier. We are just about to hit the dock. Unfortunately, we tend to be on the narrower part of the ship, so it's a little difficult to see from where we are, but the first line will be going out momentarily. And then we will shift colors. We will move the flags. We'll tie down the rest of our lines. The gangway will come out, and then we are done with our operation for the day. I want to give a special thanks to everybody who has participated in this project, as well as all of you folks who have tuned in. It has been a long 78 days out of the water, and we are looking forward to returning home next Thursday. We are very close to being completed with this project. Still have a few last I's to dot and T's to cross before we are finished, but we are just about there. But thank you, North Atlantic Ship Repair. That is our dry dock that has been doing the work, and everyone who works there, the riggers, the welders, the laborers, OSM, who I still never learned what that acronym stands for, but they work on the hull. It's been Thomas, who works in the office. We love him. He's great. The safety guys, the quality assurance guys, and everybody else. It's been great, as well as all the contractors working with them. CCSI, they're the painters. We brought in extra welders. We brought in a very nice guy who did the UT tests, as well as the folks who did the fiberglass on the propeller shafts. We also have got Resolve and North Star doing our ballasting, McAllister doing our tugboat operations today. So it has been a labor of love from a large team of folks. But from those of us here at Battleship, New Jersey, we are just about to complete our tow. We are just a mere few feet from the dock now. And then the first line goes out any moment. We are recording when we're doing things like putting lines out, when we left the dock, when we crossed the sill, when the gangways came and went. So that way that is in our records permanently, both for official records for the Coast Guard who needs to know, as well as for the museum's records going forward. So we will be tracking that. We will do a recap episode where we will probably include some of those fine details. There is a group shot of not everybody who worked in the dry dock, but some. We did a group picture yesterday. A lot of the contractors had already departed. We got as many people as we could. That group shot you'll probably be able to find on the Battleship's Facebook page sometime soon. I know Ryan posted on his Facebook page. Ryan Zemansky on Facebook. Look him up. So you can come to Camden to watch the ship pull in next Thursday. We're throwing a party on the pier. There'll be music. There'll be food. There'll be booze. Check it out. It is going to be good fun. Go to battleshipnewjersey.org to get the details on that. So right now, while we are very close to the pier, we are now just making sure that we are pulled right into the spot that we want to be on. Seems like we're moving backwards just a little bit to get lined up to the pier where we want to be. But we are very, very close to the pier. Last time we were here in Paulsboro was in March. That is where we took on our ballasting water. The first time around, that ballasting water was removed while we were in dry dock, and then new ballasting water put on a few weeks ago. Ryan is currently participating in our flag shifting events, so he's going to be taking down the large American flag. And at this point, we're just waiting for confirmation that we are in the right spot, and then the first line will get thrown in just a moment. We are close enough to the pier that from amidships I can't even see the edge. We are very, very close. But I can see our team waiting there at the spot where our gangway is going to go to get that pulled on as soon as we can. We are just about ready to toss the first line. And with that, folks, we are here at our pier in Camden. We are going to wrap up our live stream. I want to thank all of you for joining us today. Please join us next Thursday for our final cruise, our return home to Camden. I expect to start the live stream probably around 11 Philadelphia time. And thank you again. Battleship New Jersey receives operating support from the New Jersey Department of State. I'll see you guys on the next cruise.